I will start with Pascale. Pascale Vandamme, everybody knows Pascale. She was the winner of last year's Jumps Women at Work Award. She has received many other awards. She's the Vice President and Managing Director of Dell Technologies, just rebranded, correct me if I'm wrong. And she has hiked to the top of Kilimanjaro, Monte Bianco, and so many other mountains in the world, figuratively and literally. We have heard about exciting times, about challenges, about opportunities. Could you share with us your experience at Dell, since this is your bread and butter for so long now?
Indeed. So thank you for having me here. So it's a great pleasure and a great honor as well. It was also a great honor to still be the ambassador, because I think it's a really important topic. And first of all, I would like to say why it's an important topic, because it's also proven by research that having a more diverse and inclusive environment, it gives organizations better results, better productivity, more customer satisfaction, a better customer satisfaction and employee satisfaction. So the question would be then, of course, what you are going to ask, why we don't have a better gender equality and a better balance. Well, I think we need to do as a company, and it's for me, it's not only the companies, it's a cooperation between the governance, the companies, the education, the parents, the marketing, the communication, to work together in an ecosystem to go for that result and drive for a better environment. So I think what we should do as a company first, and what we did at Dell Technology for the last, I could say 15 years, we're trying and we do our best and we put a lot of effort in it to create an inclusive and diverse environment, as a work environment, so a culture that is accessible for mirroring the society and is accessible for having a diverse and inclusive organization. So how we are doing that, and we put a lot of efforts in that. First of all, we make our chairman, Michael Dell, the CEO, we make him as well the chairman of our initiative for diversity and inclusion. So he is the global chairman for diversity and inclusion at our company. So he's driving all those activities. So the first thing that we should do as an organization is make it a formal process. Don't talk about it, but really do it. So this is one of the first things. And do it on all the different layers. Other things, what was helpful as well, is that we, our managers, were evaluating as well how diverse and inclusive is their organization. So we're really looking into the people and really looking at the results, how diverse and inclusive is the organization. But we also have trainings, because we all know what we saw as well. We have all we need to be conscious about our unconscious bias. And we all have that the same. So it's not because you are women that we cannot travel, that we cannot take high roles in the organization because we have children. So those are the things that I think we should work on as an organization. And this is something that was really very powerful to have those trainings. So we make our people and our managers, but everybody in an organization, conscious about the unconscious bias. And so this was one of the elements that we took as well. The other one is as well, how do we attract more women to the technology? We all know that specifically in technology and IT, there is a war for talent. So there as well, we learned to adapt our communication. So what we did, so in the job descriptions, for example, we put words in that really were appealing to women. So there's also, based on research, that if you change your wording, you're going to attract more female talent. So that was one of the ones that we did. We also said, okay, it's important that we make sure that it's not about technology, it's about what is technology doing to our society, our community. So what is the purpose of technology? So it's not about the bits and the bytes anymore, it's about what is technology giving back to the society. This was also some of the recommendations that we saw out of the surveys that we did. How should we attract more women? And another powerful thing that we did as well, if you have open positions, if we don't have women, we refuse to move forward. So we really refuse to move forward if we don't have female talent. So I don't believe for any open job description that we have, it's not possible to find, look here in the room, very strong, powerful women with a lot of capabilities. And so those are the actions that we specifically took just to make sure to create that inclusive and diverse environment.
Thank you. And you're trying 50-50 at all levels, correct?
So we're trying to fight to have, if we don't have female talents and we want to have a 50-50, we don't move forward with the procedure. So we push talent acquisition back and to look for capable women for that open position.
Thank you so much. Elke, you have been working for quite a while as Senior Director and Head of Talent Acquisition EMEA at Microsoft, who is a pioneer in these waves. And you have been going through major transformations that connect a lot with what we have been talking here today. What can companies do, and what is Microsoft been doing that can be good practices to share with the other companies that are now facing these same challenges?
When you were referring to the arrogant culture, right? I think that for those that knew Microsoft, let's say in the late 90s, early 21st century, that would be the image that you would have, and rightfully so. Steve Ballmer, and definitely Steve Ballmer, top down. Kevin Turner, the CEO, like scorecard. That was the way we had to live and eat and breathe. And so the change of the mission, that's been the starting point of the transformation, because indeed we were like totally isolated from the new technologies. First of all, Microsoft was not born in the cloud, which Alibaba is, Amazon was, Google is. So that's one. So, and Apple had launched all these fascinating products. So we were like way beyond. Nobody was really interested in Microsoft anymore. And so the start of the transformation was actually with the mission. From a PC on every desktop, that was the old mission. By the way, that has been accomplished, right? But so what? To empower every person and every organization on the planet to achieve more. And this is where you immediately feel the purpose behind, right? It is not only is it a bold statement, but it's really purpose-driven. And before I explain and articulate a little bit about the culture that goes with that mission, just an example of what we try to give as examples to the people we hire, to the people in our company, to have them understand what the purpose really means in concrete, right? So I had recently the pleasure to be, so since I'm running EMEA, I'm also dealing with Africa. And so technology as an enabler for people in society is just unbelievable. Think about rural places, so where it's like no city, so definitely not a bank. No bank account. And so just with the technology and a phone, because even in this world, all people have a smartphone, right? So with the smartphone, they're able to get a loan. Because when they have a smartphone, they need to pay for their subscription. And showing that they can pay every month their subscription shows credibility on their finance, which allows them to have small loans. So, and that is really what we try to bring as the purpose forward, that as Microsoft, we make technology that empowers all these possibilities. And so, but that of course is not enough, because the culture of Microsoft of the past, even with that purpose, definitely wouldn't work. So our CEO, Satya Nadella, is 5 years as a new CEO. He has launched growth mindset. Now, he didn't invent the growth mindset, to be clear. It is actually written by a lady called Carol Dweck. And so she has thought about this new culture for education purposes. It started actually with like what she wanted to do to educate her kids. It all starts with kids, I guess. And growth mindset is about, instead of knowing it all, learning it all. And so we listened to like lifelong learning. That is what we try to create as a culture at Microsoft, which was a culture of know-it-all, right? So saying like, I'm not following, I don't understand what you mean, was not something you did. You were supposed to know it all, which is an issue, right? Because in a fast-changing environment where nobody really knows it, and you have people pretending they know it, that doesn't allow for an inclusive culture for some people who have new ideas to bring that forward. So growth mindset, which is the opposite of fixed mindset is really, really at the core of the culture at Microsoft these days. Which means, of course, as well that we need to, and that is the maybe the flip side of the coin, is that we need to think faster, because it allows us to fail fast, but also change fast our ideas. And so while it is more fascinating and people can lean more in, it also requires much more speed. Because at Dell you make sure that you have women for all open positions, which is great. We try to do that as well. What I actually noticed is that it is even not enough to do that. We try to screen in versus screen out. And let me explain a little bit. How many times do you have candidates where you say, like, doesn't fit the requirement on this and this and this angle, and this is the way you make your decision? Doesn't fit for. What we try to do, in order to also make sure that not only we have women come to the succession slate, to the interview, is that we say, like, on these requirements, the person is missing a certain experience. Which of them can we develop? And so we reverse the screen in, like, and therefore we don't want her. We say, like, and therefore we want her in, because those elements we can develop. It's a fundamental shift. I'm not saying it easy, because you have to challenge the hiring managers on that continuously. But it is really it's a flipping turning point.
Thank you, Elke. I'm sure there will be a lot of questions and comments. I would have many myself, but we need to use our time effectively. Fredéric, Bardeau, you have founded Simplon, and I need to read this, I'm sorry, the most inclusive international network of free tuition digital skills bootcamp for underprivileged talent.
Sorry for this.
We have been talking about purpose, and Elke was just mentioning on how very practical things like allowing people that never had access to a loan or to a bank account to have it now because we have technology, so how empowering that is. You are an idealist, someone who has been working on empowering people in the cyber culture, bringing this digital social innovation for underprivileged people and bringing women on board in this process. You work in more than 14 countries. Tell us a little bit more about your exciting work, and how do you see bringing women into this digital age and companies to tap into this pool?
Thank you for this introduction, which is very challenging. It's a social company. It's very important to say that Simplon is an impact-driven company. So our main focus and priority is to leverage the digital skills mismatch to empower people. So we are targeting underprivileged people and also underrepresented people in the digital sector. And at the cross of both, there are women. There are women who are underprivileged and underrepresented. So we are targeting this kind of audiences to train them for free, which is the main difficulty of the job, to make it free for the beneficiaries. So it's through presential training. So it's really schools with chairs, you know, real trainers, and we are lacking of girls who can train also men and women to IT skills. And we are doing this for 6 and 12 months training for free. And there are so many tech jobs and IT jobs available on the market that it is really a strong leverage to empower people, because digital skills is like, you know, magical powers. You can express yourself, you can find jobs. It's not like gig economy jobs. It's you know, really you can drive your own skills on a long way, and it's a path and careers. There are so many things to say about careers for women in IT jobs, but it's working. We train more than 5,000 people, so 31% are women, which is in the IT field is really high level. It's a pity to say this, but really depending on the countries, but in Europe and North America, 30% of women in a boot camp learning programming languages is really high. And there are jobs after this. So this is our work, and it's very difficult to do it because it's a value chain, and you can fail at each step of the value chain. Attracting women, convincing women they are capable. It's not very easy to fight self-censorship and to fight this macho and misogyn context in the cyberculture. I've been studying it for 20 years. I wrote a book on Anonymous, and I'm really aware of the hacker way. And the hacker figure is really a not woman-friendly figure. So we are struggling these cultural things within the companies, but also in the mindset of the girl who are candidating to our training. So we are attracting, retaining, promoting challenges for them during their training, and we are working with companies who are really inclusive and who are making the strong efforts to empower them and to make the career. So it's really like a value chain. It's very difficult from one country to another. In Africa or in India, it's more easy to work with women in the IT field. In France and Europe, here in Belgium, it's very difficult. We have some schools here. There are only 20% of women, so we are pushing the women to candidate to B-Code, because this is the Simplon name here in Belgium. And we are working with Microsoft on AI, because it's the good thing that I heard. AI attracts more women than coding, because AI, it's driven by solving problems. You know, it's not about tech or Java or PHP or JavaScript. This is not very interesting for women, and I can understand this. So we are working at each level of the chain. It's very difficult, but we can do it. So we continue to do it.
And you are working with companies not only to help them get talent out there, but to use their own talent to upskill people that would normally have their jobs
impacted
by the changes, correct?
We discovered that the methodology we are using is also working for collaborators and employees, and there is a strong digital divide and digital gap within the companies, because the digital transformation is impacting competencies. And when the companies are starving from new talents, they don't think about their own internal talents, and they don't think about women that can be the IT jobs and the IT candidate for the IT department. So we are doing reskilling and upskilling programs within the companies, especially in banks, which have really been transformed by their business and multi-canal, etc. So we are leveraging digital skills to empower women within banks to go from one customer service front office to IT department. And this is working because it's the same methodology, the self-censorship. So it's really like there is a promising way here.
Thank you so much. We have a lot to discuss there as well. But now, Céline, you are a young entrepreneur, you're a media specialist, you've grown in this digital age, and you have been working both with companies and with women to make this transition into the fifth wave smoother. Can you tell us a little bit more about not only your experience and the good practices you are seeing, but if we link it to the conclusions or the preliminary findings of our survey, women are ready, they want to be upskilled, they want to be trained. What are they telling you? Is this your experience? Are you also feeling it this way?
Yes, thanks a lot. So maybe I'm just going to talk a little about Gender Barstow, so to explain to you what we do. So Gender Barstow is a consulting agency that is dedicated to gender equality and more specifically to gender diversity in the workplace. We specialize in communication because we came to realize that these diversity issues ultimately only result in limited representations and beliefs, and specifically to the digital economy, it's like a lot of cultural biases. So we think that this is the responsibility of companies to make their jobs more attractive and more mixed, simply because they are the best ones to talk about it and because they are the ones who will benefit from it. So what we mostly do is that we raise awareness on the remaining obstacles to gender diversity with conferences and workshops. We do also a lot of training, particularly in non-sexist communication, but also in non-sexist recruitment. And finally, we help companies to change their corporate communication and opposite communications so that they can recruit more women. So it's a lot about what you talked earlier, like building inclusive corporate communications on the wordings that you use, the messages, the images that you use, and particularly in the tech job descriptions. There's a lot of words that are like we search for ninja coders and stuff like that, which is not really fitting well for women, because you are searching for tech developers, not like shooting a Jackie Chan movie, so you don't really need ninjas, you just need like competent people. We also work a lot with the recruitment process and how is it important for the recruiting team to also include women in the interviews, because I've been leading, I'm going to talk about it later, but I've been leading interviews and focus groups with young students, and the main thing that they tell is that they only see men when they pass the job interviews, and it's kind of scary for them. So it's a lot about also how you commit to gender equality and how you build your corporate culture around gender equality, how you involve your employees, and how you involve your CEO to like be clear on your commitments to gender equality and how you set your corporate culture around that. So to be more specific on the study that I've been leading towards students, like female students in coding schools in France. At first it was I wanted to talk with them about what they were looking for in companies or for their future jobs. But in the end, we ended up talking about the sexism that they face in their schools. And it was kind of disturbing for me, because I was thinking that it was not an issue anymore. So I've learned a lot of things, like the fact that they put a lot of avoidance strategy. I don't know if it's really English, but most of the girls told me that they changed their behaviors when they get into the schools because they have to be prepared for sexism. That one of the girls told me that she used to be like really feminine before, like she used to wear a lot of dresses and stuff like that, and that she changed totally. She became even like a kind of a guy, and people were telling her, you know, you've changed a lot and you're acting like a man right now. And I've learned also that some girls in the schools are like playing the game of the sexist jokes, because it's easier for them to get in the game of the sexism and tell sexist jokes rather than being the target of the sexist jokes also. And regarding as their careers, what I've learned is that they search a lot for companies that are already including women. They don't want to be like the only female developers in a team of many men. And this is what we were talking about earlier, about the geek culture, you know, and the geek image. It's like most of the companies are only composed by tech and men tech developers, and it's kind of a basement effect, you know, the garage effect. That is it to avoid, and it's also a lot about promoting like the work-life balance. I mean, the work-life-learn balance now, and saying that okay, in your company you're gonna have to work, but you also can have a life outside, and it's about changing this geeky and no-life image that most of the tech companies also still have.
Thank you so much, and there would be so much to say there. The first time I went to one of those hackathons 3 years ago, they had striptease events at the end of the program. So voila, there's some way to go still, yes, in Silicon Valley. Now, it's your time, because we want to have meaningful conversations. You have 5 fantastic speakers here. What would you like to ask? I will take a few questions. Please introduce yourself briefly, your question or your remark, and if there's one person to whom it is addressed, or if it's to the panel in general. Please, there's one person here. Thank you.
So I'm Karine Covet. I'm an HR director at Cargill, which is not a digitalization company, but more agricultural. And we are going to this journey of digitalization. I'm part of the program to develop this digitalization capability within the company. I'd like to ask you, because you may have worked with other companies, not only in the digital world, how you would define digitalization capability, which advice you could give us for this journey.
How to define digitalization capabilities? Someone wants to reply? Pascale, please, and then I will take the rest.
Yeah, well, of course, at Dell Technology, our main purpose is helping our customers with the digital transformation. And also with Ahoria, with the study, was what John with Jump, we see that digital skills will be crucial. So the main topic will be, for me, I think you need to start definitely with the culture. So making a culture, and this is from the top to the bottom, from the bottom to the top, that is ready to give time back to the people so that they have time to learn, to go for the certifications that we discussed, to go for having time to learn and to upgrade the skills. And this is something, for me, is first of all, is the culture, then making sure that you create that time, but that you also support your people by giving them the right training so that they will be able to upgrade the skills. And that will be there's a lot of outside, there are some surveys that you can check. It was also in Digital Belgium. We have some surveys that you can check out. Where are you on your digital skills? So there are some information available. But I think the most important thing that you should do is you can say that you work on, but are you really sure? So is your culture ready? Is your top management ready? Is the environment ready? That's one thing. Then another aspect would that be have that culture and make time, but also make sure that your people, definitely your female talents, have coaches and have mentors and have sponsors. Working with ambassadors that are very strong in those skills, but also make sure that everybody, but specifically your female talents, have people that are going to support them in that journey. And so this is also one of the third element. I think it's important to be successful, not only in a digital journey, but also having the right balance and gender balance in your organization.
Few more?
Maybe if I can just add.
Of course.
So I would encourage you to take the survey. Yeah, because actually, while we created it, it took us a long time to actually say, like, what are we investigating, right? What are we surveying? And so we took inspiration from a study from the European Commission. And so in the survey, you will find the list of all the digital skills that the Jump forum thinks is relevant.
Yes, yes, of course, Frederic.
Just 2 insights. So, the usual path is about the CEO, the COMEX, and after the rest of the company. Maybe I should recommend that you go from bottom to up and start with employees, blue collars, and everyone, and get back on the top. And the CEO will be the latest to have the digital transformation in his mind. It will push, from the bottom to the up. The first advice. It's really like not doing the learning expeditions only for executive, etc. It's not working. It simply doesn't work. And the other thing is that you can capitalize also on a powerful lever, which is reverse mentoring. because it's not about some people from outside training your company, but you have talents and digital talents within your companies, and it can be an employee that is doing reverse mentoring to the CEO, and it's really powerful that you can leverage reverse mentoring just to so.
Thank you. Yeah, reverse mentoring. Yeah. Is proving a quite good model. And as Pascale was saying, not only mentoring, but the sponsoring, because some surveys have actually shown that women are sometimes over-mentored and under-sponsored. So mentoring needs to be combined with the rest. I see a few hands, so please, I will take those 2 questions now.
Hi, Rosie Kime from Stanley Black & Decker. I was really interested in the skill in, skill out notion and philosophy. What would you say, and this is a sort of, I understand, a catch-all, what are the main skills gaps that you're seeing in terms of female talent?
Yes, okay, we still have some time, yeah.
Well, actually, so the thing is, we used to assess always experiences, right? Do you have... Did you do that? Did you do that? Do you know that, etc.? And then you get stuck, because the real in-depth technological experiences, unfortunately, not so many women have it, or let's say it differently, more men will have it, right? So that's a little bit of the reality. So what we do now is we assess for competencies, transferable competencies. Such as adaptability, judgment, growth mindset, learning agility. Because that's what we think will drive us forward and that we can transfer to the next job.
Yeah, and I would like to add, to be honest, I think if you're looking at the skills, I think we are, as women, we are at the best moment in time, because what will be successful, and if, again, go back to those researches and studies, a diverse and inclusive organization is key, but what are the key skill sets that are very important is, of course, is working together, engagement, creativity, empathy, problem solving, and those are the skills that women are very strong in. So on that point, we do not have a gap. We only need to create that environment and that culture that will bring more women into that work environment. That's one thing. And another thing that I think is also still, it's not a gap, it's something that women, if you see there is an open position, and if you go, then you see that women with even competences, and they maybe are 70–80%, they don't go for that job because they still think, I'm not perfect. I'm missing 20%, I'm not perfect. While men even have only 50% of them, and they think they are the perfect candidate. So I think it's more about making sure that you know what you would like to do, that you have as a person, you have that personal plan, that you use the right people to bring you to that goal. Because I think we all, as women, we all have the capabilities. It just need to be sure that as a company, we need to make time and spend time that people can learn and that they are able to change. And that long-term learning will be one of the top topics, I think, to be very successful as well.
Which connects to the self-censorship you were mentioning. Rick?
Yeah, thank you, Pascale, because I fully agree. And this is really the case. I think that all women don't turn your strengths into weaknesses. And I'm fully aware of that, and you should be fully aware. The main difference I have seen so many times when women applied for a job, they don't apply for a job because they want to have all the skills before they apply to a job. And a man applies for the job and then tries to acquire the skills that are needed for the job. And that is a big threat. And so that means that in most companies, men lead the company and lead a couple of women that are far better than the male leading them, because he had the guts to say, yeah, I can do this. And then they didn't acquire, and then he tries to acquire, not even tries to acquire the skills. So don't turn your strengths into a weakness. The fact that you want to be perfect, use that, please.
And then I think it's also important to have the right leaders, and that's inclusive leadership, so that they know that they can pick out even those persons that don't stand up, but are perfect for the role. And this is something what we try to learn on leadership and at Microsoft as well, to pick up people and make sure that your leaders identifying those people that have the right skills, but don't stand up themselves. And this is part of the total training that we should have, that a leader should do to be successful in his organization.
create inclusive cultures at the end. Yes, and as you were saying, while we are focusing on the glass half empty, we should look at the half full, because yes, the World Economic Forum, and not only, is showing that if there is a skill set that is fundamentally crucial in today's world, is the emotional intelligence one: empathy, self-awareness, self-management, the capacity to motivate and engage others, create collective meaning, and create teams and networks. So this is the new type of mindset we're talking about. I have a question there, and then I have a question there. First there, then there. Who was there? Oh, well. Oh, there. Please.
Thank you very much, Claudia. My name is Julie Nazarali, and I'm representing INSEAD Women in Business Club. So we're an alumni club that represents 55,000 alumni around the world, and we're rolling out across the world a reverse mentorship program. And I was quite interested that you mentioned, Claudia, reverse mentorship, because when we were looking at rolling it out, we didn't find many examples. And our model at the moment is for both mentor, for a mentee who could be male or female, but we start with females because we're piloting it here in Belgium and we're doing it in other countries. We'll have one male mentor and one female mentor. And our idea is that the mentor, because it might be of somebody of a different experience or generation, has to also understand the changes in digitalization or thinking, and it's also a leadership issue. So I was wondering, because when we were looking at rolling it out, we didn't find many examples of reverse mentorship. We also looked at company examples, there weren't many. So what sort of data does the panel have, or do you have, Claudia?
Oh, that's a question for me.
For you and for
very
you
happy.
and
My role here as a moderator, and I have to control myself. But yes, which is very difficult, as Isabella knows. But I think we still have a little time. Yes, we have over the last 10 years been in different companies, and especially with international organizations and the European Commission, putting together top managers or middle managers, so heads of unit and directors, with younger professionals that would have been identified through talent management programs, so they are already in the talent pipeline. And we have been putting together, it's mostly about younger women or men, and it's more frequently the younger women, and a more senior men or women. And this is the reverse couples. And they meet through a year. Normally, they have to meet at least twice a month. Then the mentors need to be trained, induced on what it means to be a mentor, the rules. So what is their role targeted at? And then the outcomes is that not only there was a transfer of wisdom that comes from the top to the younger, but that actually there is a total redefinition of inclusion and the mindset of the older, more senior professional. So these are the kind of couples we have been seeing, and in terms of progression, these are also the relationships that last longer. So throughout the pipeline, the senior managers will sort of keep these talents under their wing and sponsor them. So not only mentor, but sponsor them. So we see that there is a correlation, including in those very tough moments where we have a lot of loss of women, especially during the 30s because of family reasons, etc. So during those moments, this kind of reverse mentoring allows to create an attraction to the company or to the organization. But I would invite you to complement with your experience.
I was both, so I was mentor and mentee. So I think it's a very good experience as a mentee because I learned a lot. So we had some new graduates and there are sitting some in the room. I learned a lot from the new people who were stepping in, so they were mentoring me as well, and I learned a lot about the way I'm communicating, the work environment. So we learned a lot how we should adapt our environment to the younger generation who stepped in, but I would also experience as a mentor. And I have to say it's not always positive, because we started with that the company 10 years ago, and sometimes it's definitely senior people that's saying, I don't want to be mentored with you, and I don't definitely want to be mentored by women, senior leaders. So it's not always, we had some experience in the beginning, and of course it was a journey, of course, but it's in both sides. So it is important as well, if you start with those programs, that you also inform people. It's not always positive, it's a journey, and it takes some time to change the mindset, definitely, of senior leaders sometimes that don't want to be mentored by junior people. So I think it's a very interesting exercise, and by the end it's very positive, and I got a lot of positive feedback and actions that I took with me even when I was a mentor or a mentee. So it's definitely something that you should do.
Céline wants to say something.
I wanted to be more specific on the digital jobs and the young women in the digital jobs, because reverse mentoring is really something great, but most of the time it's like young people learning to old people how to use social networks and stuff like that. So it has to be like more deeper than this kind of thing. But when I talk to the young students, young women students about their career, they were like really concerned about how they are gonna get higher positions and how they're gonna manage a team that is gonna be only composed by men and young men. And they were like, okay, I think they will bother that I'm gonna be a woman leading a team of only men, and this is really an issue for them. So they have to be like reassured about that, and it's really important to make them comfortable with the fact that the company is like really accepting her, and that they will have a future in this company.
Thank you so much. Yes.
Hello, I'm Marina Aubert, and I'm a digital expert at Bruxelles Formation. I was the founder of a web communication agency for 10 years. I wanted to point out several things. First thing is 80% of the companies have 10 or less employees, even in the digital world. So it's good to have big trainings and mentors and so on, but you have to take care of this. And during these 10 years of web communication agencies, I've met, of course, lots of web agencies. And I have to say that when I was 40, I just was exhausted with what you were saying, like all the sexist jokes. They're talking about their testicles each two sentences. And so I started my studies with computer engineering as well. And I wanted to ask you, as a head of big companies, what do you think about, will there be a time that when it will be possible to put pressure on the schools? Because that's where everything's beginning. You talked well about what's happening for girls in computer engineering schools. And I have to say that misogyny comes from, as well as from students, also as from teachers. And as heads also of those schools, and I really would enjoy the big companies to put pressure on those schools, because that's where, well, if nothing is done there, then the rest. Of course, we will have a lady that will feel less competent because they are only 80% of the skills, but there are also many, many overqualified ladies that want to ask for a job, and they are not picked because they are more skilled than the one that wants to hire her. So you see, I've met much more overqualified ladies than overqualified men, yeah. So I think the only thing to say is really act on the schools. Thank you.
Biased education, biased organizations. Pascale, you wanted.
Well, first of all, maybe I would like to reply on that. It's not because you are a small company that you cannot do the same actions like we do as big companies. For me, it's like I said, it's more about the culture. So if you even have it with 2 or 3 persons, or you are with 200,000 persons, it's really important that you create that open culture and have that environment that people can learn, and mentors could also be from external. So, for example, I also had external mentors. So you don't have the need always to have it internally and have big structures to be successful. So for me, it's that culture. If you are small or big, it's having that inclusive and open culture environment that you have people given the flexibility to work, to have that work-life-learn balance. I think this is one big example, and this is something that you can do in a small or a big company. And it's also important to share experiences. So there are a lot of networks, there are a lot of discussions where those topics are discussed. So I think I would encourage you as well to join those ones, but really create an environment and make sure that your people have that possibility to learn and to be open for that inclusive environment. So this is one topic. The other one is indeed on schools, and this is, I mentioned that before already, is creating that ecosystem. That ecosystem is indeed between education, between the companies and between the government. And so it's really a creative work environment to make sure that we attract, to work on those digital skills, that we create an environment that even people can work on those digital skills. And I think Mr. Decaux is standing there. He did a lot of efforts there with, when he was also Minister of Digital Agenda. He put it forward there, and he had a lot of efforts on making sure that schools, government, companies working together to create that environment. So I totally agree with you that we should also teach the teachers to be able to identify the right skills, but to learn also the people the right skills. And it's not only about the knowledge, it's also about, like was said as well, Elke, making sure that you have the right skills to be successful in the future. So I think it's a joint effort, it's a journey, but it's indeed a joint effort to make sure that also those teachers having the right skills and to create that environment and to make that cooperation and ecosystem ready to be successful, to develop those digital skills. So I totally agree with that.
Fred. Oh, sorry,
yeah.
Rick.
Now we have to realize that, just realize that all of you live in the 21st century. When you go to work, you are kind of obliged to work with technologies that are 20th century. The management style in most of the companies is still 19th century.
And your kids go to school in the 18th century, and that is reality, unfortunately. And that is, we absolutely need to do something about that. I fully agree. And we have to realize the old world is dead, but not fully dead. The new world is not fully born yet. And we're in the kind of in-between. And that's always a dangerous zone, but also a zone of huge opportunities. We can complain about it or try to do something about it. And I think that we need to do the second. That is, in the in-between, let's do something about it. The fact that you're here is that you absolutely want this to change. And it's not only about gender equality, it's also about reverse coaching. It's about bringing that new world in. And it's up to us to think, to push that new world and to kill the old world as soon as possible.
We are about to wrap up. I would like one last word from each of you to our audience. Key takeaways, key tips, 1 minute each. And I know you wanted to start easy, huh?
One key takeaway that I want to share with you, that I was personally very surprised that we have to deploy non-mixed and reserved to women training to promote gender equality and parity in our training. That was really a surprise for me, because since you don't allow to liberate the speech and to fight self-censorship, there will be no equality. So that was one. I say, I know it's polemic. And the other thing is that about quotas, if you have not a critical mass of women in an IT classroom or an IT environment, there will be no equality.
Yep, 30% tipping point, 40% gender age level.
Yeah, for me it's gonna be like build an inclusive culture, not only bring diversity in your company, because if you don't prepare like your employees and your managers and all your staff to to bring diversity in their team, it's not going to work. For example, one of the most important issues about self-confidence and self-censorship is that the women don't feel welcome in the tech schools, and they don't feel welcome in tech companies. So it's like a real issue, so that they feel comfortable and that they feel at home. So it's really important to build that inclusive culture and your corporate culture to bring like everybody on the gender equality mindset.
Okay.
I always try to think, how can I show personally and put things in practice and not only preach it. And so I started within the certification program we have at Microsoft. I started the Azure Fundamental course that might not say you anything. So Azure is the cloud platform of Microsoft, which is a very technical course, like totally out of my comfort zone. Although I have some, like 30 years ago, some technology foundation, but still. So, one, I want to show, like, take the certification which is available. And if it's not in your company, there is so much out there, right? So take charge, do it yourself, and go out of the comfort zone for technical capabilities. I hope to be still somewhere around in a career in 10 years from now, so yeah, that's why I do that.
Pascale.
Yeah, to the companies I would say make sure that you create that inclusive and diverse environment where people feel they belong, where people feel they can bring out the best out of themselves, where people work together, and where people feel happy. I think this is really important. This is the first thing that I think is really important. And to you, I would say make sure that you have a plan. You have, and a lot of ladies in the room, you have the right skills to be successful. It's already proven. So make sure that you have a personal plan that will bring you to the next level. You have the capabilities. Find the right people that's going to help you in that journey. And so if you go to the networking, be very specific. Choose the person that's going to help you. But you need persons. You are not on your own. You don't eat by yourself. So you need the right person to help you to be successful in your individual developing plan, so in your own business plan. And I would also stay very close to yourself, be authentic, and follow your passion.
Thank you, Rick. Last but not the least.
I would like to address the ones that are not in the room, those male managers. They should be absolutely ashamed that we need something like this. I really mean that.
Absolutely, absolutely.
I think that if they are aware that we need more women in management, the first thing they should do is step aside and give room to women. Then this is not necessary. I think that as long as we need an event like this, there is something absolutely wrong in society and in business. And then you say, yeah, Rick, and what about you? I did it. 2 years ago, I stepped aside, and my company is being run by a 30-year-old female CEO. And we're very happy that we did that. So I would like to address the ones that are not in the room.
Thank you. It's about walking the talk, isn't it? And just before you join me in a round of applause to all these fantastic speakers, I take a few conclusion notes as well on the importance of purpose, on the inclusive leadership, the inclusive teams, the inclusive cultures, the 40% of gender mix at every level, of, as Elke was saying, of having adequate and intentional strategies and aligned ecosystems between the private and the public and the education so we can tackle this. And then if we are dinosaurs, we step away. And with this, I have instructions to tell you that you have books and you have coffee and you will return here at 11:30. And now, yes, please join me to thank this fantastic roundtable.